The special council meeting Monday, June 10th, to hear the presentation of the financial statement. Come on up.
I forgot it was a special meeting, so I wondered why nobody showed up. Well, I like those ones. So, well, it looks like you found enough packets. In front of you, you should have the bound audit report for the year ended 2023. Pretty similar to prior year when you're looking at them in comparisons. I did present the PowerPoint, so you should have a bound document like this as well. No, probably not. Okay, I'll use mine. Very much shorter. I'll put you to sleep. Boy, I probably usually bring those. So I have it here. I told him I wasn't going to present anything, sorry. It's okay, we can go through it like this too. So the agenda will go over the audit results, some financial results, and then the key issue or summary items. Oh, yeah, you might need to make at least one copy. I have a lot of notes on mine. I'm pretty sure I did on the final. So I was thinking you were going to pass it out to the board, the council. Okay. Yep. So I will put this up here, don't mind my notes. So overall, the city's audit report, unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, highest level of assurance that us as auditors can give. 2 material weaknesses. In the past, you've just had the segregation of duties, right? You're kind of small, can't separate out all those accounting functions. This year, we put the draft of the financial statements in there. We do prepare that, we bound it, put it in the book. We did have management review that still though, make sure those numbers were accurate and looked good. Minnesota legal compliance, we did have 3 findings here. Conflict of interest, so related parties on the council. So if you have a related party, you want to make sure you abstain from any of those votes and recuse yourself from that. Miscellaneous provision, special meetings, so you want to make sure that you provide enough notice, right? There are certain statutes that you have to meet in order to hold a meeting. So you want to ensure you meet those requirements. And then the contract and bid laws, quotes on hand for a year. So this one was, there was a bid that we selected. It was done just less than a year ago. You went with it. They just couldn't find support for those bids and quotes. I'm pretty sure just due to turnover. So going forward, that should be corrected as well. But you are required to hang on to those for a year.
Mary, are you saying that those are areas that where we failed to comply?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So hopefully those will be corrected next year, and we won't have the repetitive ones. And they are in your document. Yep.
Yeah, 74 or 5.
Page 74. A little bit more in detail if you wanted to read those in the bound document in the back, page 74.
Okay.
Perfect. So overall, we'll look at the governmental funds and the 5-year trend. Again, a little bit of a chart, a little bit easier than reading those back to back. So from 2019, far left, all the way to 2023, far right here. You can see that the revenues and expenses did decrease a little bit, although fund balance did go up. So good there, right? So even though you both decreased. With an increase in your fund balance. So you'll notice when you look, and so these are going to be on page, I'll guide you there so at least you can look. On page 19 of the bound document, these are the revenues and expenditures that we're going over. When you look in comparison to prior year, your interest last year, remember, was really bad, about $116,000. This year was $461,000. So market definitely picked back up in 2023. And then that was offset with intergovernmental revenues. Last year you received $753,000. This year was just $292,000. So that netted together brought that revenues down a little bit from last year. And then your expenditures, then you dropped your capital outlay. So basically your intergovernmental funds help pay for some of those capital projects that you didn't have going on this year then. Okay. Overall, governmental fund revenues, just again, a little bit more of a chart so you can see the categories this time, right? So intergovernmental is your dark blue, so you're going to see that decrease from prior year. Interest, the red, you'll see went up from prior year. Again, market change there. And then taxes did increase a little bit as well. Okay. And then expenditures, so where's that money going out? So 2020, 21, right, a lot of heavy capital outlay here. And then in 23, gets it down to a little bit less. You're going to see public safety increased. A lot of that is due to wages when you look at those categories. Okay. Overall general fund will show a 5-year trend here, right? So your fund balance is the green line here. Good, right? Pretty flat here, and then you're gradually increasing there, meaning your revenues and expenditures. So your dark blue is over your light blue there. Funding all those operations. Net other financing sources would be anything like bond proceeds, sale of assets, things like that is going to go in this red line. Very minimal for this year. Okay. Again then, just a bar chart here. Both down, again, the total expenditures and revenues, but again, in similar fashion to where you were able to increase fund balance there. Okay. So then general fund, where are your revenues and expenditures being spent, right? Kind of your big pie chart. These expenditures then are on page 19 under the general fund by category. And then revenues are up top there. So biggest expense here, right, is going to be your public safety and capital outlay. So capital outlay, as you can see from the graphs, right, the switches year over year. But when you look, pretty comparable, public safety, public works, and then your general government are going to be your 3 biggest pieces of that. Revenues, remember, you're a little different from every other city around, right? You're heavily dependent on taxes instead of that intergovernmental. You don't get much of that year over year, right? So very minimal change there. And then your miscellaneous, again, upticked from last year, is going to include your interest, and then it also has your contributions and donations in there as well. Okay. General fund revenues here, so just another quick look at that. Taxes pretty consistent year over year. Miscellaneous is going to go up like we talked about. Special assessments fairly consistent, and then your intergovernmental here did decrease as discussed. Overall expenditures then, again, we looked at this big decrease in your capital outlay. And you don't ever want to see that probably go to 0 either, right? It means you're not maintaining. If you have projects that are coming up, you want to make sure you're doing them over time. So just continue to monitor that and plan that out as you go. Okay. So then we'll go to your sewer fund, your only proprietary fund. So 2022, that red line, right, in net income, net loss, definitely different than everywhere else. Remember, you transferred in about $828,000 last year. When you look, though, again, your sewer charges went up, and then your other operating expenses went up as well. But again, your dark blue is over your light blue. So operating revenues over operating expenses there. So your 5-year trends, again here, all very similar here. And what you don't want to see, right, is a big gap here where you're not fully funding right now. Okay, green line is going to be your depreciation on those assets. Overall, we've always looked at your general fund just by department. So here's your general government expenditures by department. When you look at last year, it's really fairly similar. There were no big changes in movement between each of these departments. Administration and planning and zoning to be expected, your 2 biggest pieces of general fund there. Okay. So then your next category is your public safety by department. And really when you look at this, only shifted about 1% between fire protection and police year over year there. Your public works had a little bit of adjustment there. Engineering last year was just at 1%. This year is up to 9%. Again, depending on what projects you have and what fees you're paying out of there. Okay. And then culture and rec, this one stays right on, 6% library and 94% recreation. So just a few other financial highlights here. So the financial statements are required to be submitted by June 30th. I believe this is already done. So the audit report and the state reporting form we fill out get submitted to the state auditor. General fund overall had a positive change in fund balance. We talked about that. And then sewer fund also had a positive change in that position, about $179,000 there. Okay. So when you look here, page 23 of your audit report, you can see there. So when you look, right, your operating revenues aren't quite enough to pay for your operating expenses. If you took out depreciation though, right, you'd be positive here. So what you're doing is funding it with taxes, your sewer connection fees, and then any miscellaneous items coming in there. So able to increase it by about $179,000. So then, capital outlay in the general fund, approximately $973,000. It was over $1 million last year, about 1.2. Debt service fund increased by about $175,000. Remember, you have to levy 105% of anything not covered by special assessments. So right now you have total debt outstanding about $5.6 million. Current fund balance of $992,000. So definitely enough to keep making those payments. Financial stability, we talked about $929,000 over budget in revenues. So interest, intergovernmental, and charges for services were all over budget there. Intergovernmental, again, for you is kind of what projects you have going on, what grants you get, things like that. Expenditures were under budget by $234,000. So right now your cash on hand is about $9.2 million with expenditures of $4.6. So the state auditor recommends, right, about 5 months because you're waiting for the tax payments. You can see that you're over that right now at about 2 years. $263,000 is unspent bond proceeds, still waiting for that last piece to come in to spend that down. You budgeted for a loss of $527,000 in the general fund, ended with a positive $523,000 now. Okay, so general fund assigned fund balance, about 1.3 there for capital, stuff you've set aside that you know you need to do. General fund had restricted fund balance, $263,000 for equipment. That is corresponding to your unspent bond proceeds. So once you get that and spend it out, that will go away. Your $108,000 restricted is for public safety. So in December, you got a payment from the state for public safety, was not spent. So we did restrict that on the financial statements. And then debt service fund just remains stable year over year. So enterprise debt position, actually, and I made an error. Sewer fund had a positive cash flow from operating activities. Don't normally see that with your operations. Well, don't get too excited. I'll have to show you what happened. Unfortunately, last year, you booked a receivable due from other governments, right, for the, was it the road project that you were doing with the county? I think we booked a receivable last year for the work that was done.
66.
Yes, okay. This year you got the cash payment. So you take that away and you're back to negative. So next year you'll be negative. Sorry. So then when you look at it, when you come down, right, you're purchasing capital assets for about 440 there. You get your property taxes in because that is not operating, right? Collection of connection charges. Then you have your interest and principal on your long-term debt that you're still using. So then you had a loss there. Overall, though, positive cash flow, about $295,000. So when you look, you have about $824 cash and investments in sewer. Okay. Perfect. So just continue to monitor those sewer funds, ensure revenues are meeting expectations. And then the final slide here, just some things, items to consider that came from the audit. So with the city, 99% of your purchases are sales tax you don't have to pay on. The only way to do that is to purchase that through the city. So you really want all invoices being paid through here and not on personal credit cards there. City council members, same as auditors, you have to be independent in appearance and in fact. So if there's any type of question there, you want to abstain from any of those voting. And then the council just be aware of the state statutes. So out on the Minnesota State website, there are statutes out there. We go through a checklist and we sit down with administration and a council member. Jackson was lucky this year. And we go through all of those. We just want to question those, make sure the city's in compliance with all of those laws and regulations. But if you ever had any questions, definitely reach out. That's what we're here for, to answer any of those questions. So that was all I had to present on. I definitely can get these to you guys. I'm guessing you didn't find it. So I can definitely shoot it over to Shar so you guys can have that.
Overall, Mary, are we healthy? Are we in good shape?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I don't know what else to say because not a lot of my cities are in that position. But right now with the cash that you have on hand, you should be set. You shouldn't have to issue too much bonds. You can fund internally. Obviously issuing bonds costs a lot of money. So just want to watch that.
Thank you for the good news.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Plus.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I move we accept the audit as
Se-
submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Jackson?
Thank you, Mary.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.